Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Grab your snacks, grab your tea, settle in. Because today we're diving into yet another episode in the long-running royal saga titled Prince William Tries PR, the public says absolutely not. Because honestly, the reactions this time were not just skeptical, they were straight up brutal. People are officially tired of the environmental sainthood cosplay, the polished speeches, the dramatic lighting, the constant, never-ending cycle of camera-ready concern. And this week, after William delivered a fresh batch of PR at the Tusk Conservation Awards, the public basically said, "Sir, please." And yes, we're going all the way in today. So let's start from the top. William showed up at the Tusk Awards yesterday, an event created to honor real conservation heroes, especially those working tirelessly in Africa. People who risk their lives to protect wildlife, fight poaching, rebuild habitats, support communities, and actually, do the work. And William stepped up to the podium with a speech that was clearly written and polished for him, full of the usual buzzwords and rehearsed sentiment. On paper, it probably looked emotional, meaningful, respectable. But once that thing hit the internet, whew. The reactions were a tidal wave of, nope, not buying it, not even a little bit. Because this is not the first time William has played the conservation card. It's been a long-running theme in his public image. The problem is that every time he does it, the public immediately pulls out the receipts. And trust me, these receipts go back years. One of the most cited examples this week was that Guardian article from 2016, where William was criticized, loudly, for defending trophy hunting. And let's be real here. When a major newspaper calls out the supposed environmental prince for justifying the killing of endangered animals, that's not a good look. It wasn't a good look back then, and now? With social media being what it is, people are throwing it back in his face at every opportunity. And when William's Tusk Awards speech started circulating online, it didn't take long for the comment sections to turn into Exhibit A, why we're not buying this. People reposted that photo. Yes, the infamous one where William and Kate are casually walking around holding hunted birds like they're strolling through a farmer's market. And every time this photo resurfaces, it hits the same nerve. How do you claim to champion wildlife conservation when you personally participate in blood sports? The contradiction is so loud, it drowns out anything he tries to say on the topic. One of the most shared responses came from Republic, the UK's largest anti-monarchy organisation. Say what you want about them, but when they go for the jugular, they do not miss. They posted, "William doesn't really care about conservation. He hunts all the time." Another PR spin from Kensington Palace. And honestly, it captured the mood perfectly. People were fed up. Because if you're truly dedicated to protecting wildlife, and you want people to take you seriously, maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't spend your holidays shooting animals for sport. Another person commented, "Hypocrite, give up hunting and we might believe you." And no, hunting on your own estates is not conservation. And listen, that's not just shade. That's a thesis statement. Others chimed in with, "It's all spin, smoke and mirrors." And the perennially popular, "Hypocrite." Short, sharp, and exactly how many people feel. And it doesn't end there. One very big reason people are calling out the hypocrisy so loudly is because, according to reports and claims that have floated around for years, William once allegedly told Harry, "Africa is mine, the elephants are mine," when mutual friends suggested that the brothers team up to work on conservation projects. Now, whether those were his exact words or not, the reported sentiment behind that claim perfectly sums up how people perceive his approach. Territorial, competitive, and rooted in image, not genuine care. The idea that this man allegedly viewed conservation work in Africa as his brand rather than a shared responsibility is exactly why people roll their eyes when he gives speeches about saving endangered species. Because when you put William's behavior next to Harry's actual work, real, long-term work, it becomes painfully obvious what's going on. Harry has spent over 20 years working across Africa, building relationships with conservationists, supporting rangers, participating in anti-poaching operations, championing community-led initiatives, shining light on human-wildlife conflict, helping rebuild ecosystems, raising awareness of HIV, supporting youth programs. The list goes on. Harry's connection to Africa is deep, personal, emotional, and grounded in action. Not in simple PR appearances, not in reading from a script at a gala, not in staging sympathy shots for glossy photos. So of course people see William's conservation persona as largely reactive. He suddenly finds passion in areas where Harry has already built a meaningful legacy. He suddenly launches initiatives only after Harry's own impact becomes widely recognized. He suddenly becomes the face of environmental concern, only when the press begins praising Harry for his authentic dedication. And this isn't me saying it. This is literally what people were commenting after William's speech. One person wrote, "This isn't passion. This is competition." Another said, "He's trying to outdo Harry again." And someone else added, "He sees Harry shining in Africa, so suddenly Africa is now his favorite cause." And then there's Earthshot. Oh, Earthshot. The grand, highly publicized environmental prize that looks less like a conservation mission and more like a glitzy award show for celebrities. People have been poking holes in Earthshot for years. The carbon footprint of the galas, the celebrity guest lists, the corporate sponsors, the private jets, the red carpets, the dramatic press releases, the endless self-promotion. Earthshot often feels like environmentalism reimagined as a Netflix award show. And the public notices this. They notice the disconnect between the message and the execution. And they notice that William's own lifestyle choices directly undermine his supposed commitments. Which brings us back to last night's speech. William stood there, polished and rehearsed, delivering a speech about the importance of conservation in Africa, while the public was simultaneously reposting photos of him hunting birds. Even people who don't follow royal news were side-eyeing this. One person wrote, "How can he stand there talking about conservation when he hunts?" Another said, "Does he think we forgot the photos?" And then someone else added, "This feels like PR to clean up his image. Nothing more." And the numbers don't lie. These comments were getting thousands of likes. It was especially telling that some Brits, people who generally try to avoid criticizing the royals, were openly calling out the hypocrisy. They weren't tiptoeing. They weren't cushioning their words. They were blunt. This doesn't feel genuine. This is performative. He's doing this for PR. The speech means nothing if he keeps hunting. When your own public isn't buying what you're selling, that's a problem. The thing is, people today don't just listen to speeches. They cross-check them with your behavior. They compare your words with your actual record. And William's record does not match his conservation messaging. You can say all the right things in a room full of conservationists. But if people can pull up photos of you and your wife holding dead birds from a hunting weekend, the message is gone. That's the reality of the world today. Authenticity is everything. Hypocrisy gets exposed instantly. And even PR teams as powerful as Kensington Palace can't outrun the internet. And the speech last night really highlighted this issue. William stood there praising African conservationists, many of whom risk their lives protecting wildlife from poachers, hunters, and environmental destruction. And at the same time, he participates in hunting traditions that contribute to the same cycle. Yes, some royal defenders will argue that hunting on estates is different. But the public isn't buying that nuance. And frankly, they shouldn't have to. If you care about protecting animals, you don't shoot them. Period. That's how people see it. And what makes this even worse for William is the contrast between him and Harry. Harry doesn't need a big speech every year to prove he cares. His actions speak. His long-term presence speaks. His partnerships speak. His relationships across Africa speak. Harry has built a legacy rooted in consistency, not image. Meanwhile, William keeps trying to deliver grand speeches to build a legacy from the top down, not through consistent action. That difference is glaring, and the public sees it, and they comment on it, loudly. So when William stepped off that stage last night, thinking he'd delivered something emotional, powerful, or inspiring, social media immediately corrected that idea. People weren't inspired. They were annoyed. They were tired. They were over it. They were calling out the hypocrisy with sharpness that Kensington Palace cannot spin away. And that's where we are today. The public isn't falling for the performance anymore. They aren't impressed by the speeches. They aren't fooled by the PR framing. They are looking at the behavior behind the messaging, and they're saying, enough. If William wants people to believe he cares about wildlife, then he needs to stop killing wildlife for sport. If he wants to be seen as a conservation leader, then he needs to drop the competition mindset and actually commit to meaningful, on-the-ground involvement. Until then, the public will keep calling it out. And they are absolutely right to do so. Because at the end of the day, conservation isn't a brand. It's not a slogan. It's not a speech you deliver once a year in front of cameras. It's a lifestyle, a commitment, a sacrifice. And until William shows that through consistent action, not PR, the public will continue to say exactly what they said last night. We're not falling for this hypocrisy.
That is it for today's video. If you have reached this far, you are truly a love fanatic. Love should not be a scandal. Prince Harry and Meghan deserve all the peace in the world. Thank you for always sharing your thoughts in the comment section and for sharing our videos too. I will see you in the next video. Cheers.